You're doing great.
Welcome to the Mine Over Mountains webinar. I hope you're all keeping well and safe in these crazy times. I'm Alex Staniforth. I'm an adventurer, speaker, author and co-founder of Mine Over Mountains, which is a new charity pending registration to restore mental health through the outdoors, which I think now is something we're understanding is more important than ever in these unprecedented times. Now, I know a lot of people will be struggling with the isolation and the restriction that we're currently experiencing. And so I felt I wanted to gather the inspirational adventurers, the athletes and the leading figures to share some tips on resilience and staying positive and staying mentally well in these tough times. I think we're all in the same boat, and I think we can find new ways to connect. And I felt that whilst we're surrounded by all this bad news and scary news, it'd be good to bring some positivity to you instead. So for tonight's guest, we're going to have another inspirational story. Where to start with Kate Strong? Well, I had the honour of speaking on Kate's podcast earlier this year. So I must say it's very nice to be on the other side of the coin asking the questions myself. Kate is an age group world champion triathlete for Team Australia. She's always broken the norm, questioned the conventional path in life. She's an investor, an entrepreneur, a Reiki master. I'm interested to know a bit more about that. Plant-powered, TEDx speaker, business coach, and has quite an interesting business card. So I'm sure with her challenges and with her experiences, she'll be questioning the norm and she'll be looking for the opportunities in this challenging situation that we're in right now. Mine Over Mountains is all about helping people to reconnect with their purpose and to find that space outdoors. So I think all of you out there will understand the importance of these things right now. Adventure and sport teaches us so much about being resilient. So I'm really looking forward to hearing Kate's story. So firstly, Kate, hi, how are you feeling?
Hi, Alex. Thank you so much for inviting me on this webinar. And yeah, I'm feeling surprisingly good. Thank you.
Great stuff. And whereabouts are you in the world right now?
Well, at the beginning of this year, I chose to turn my life 100% nomadic. So now being sort of landlocked, I luckily was talking with my partner to move in with him. So I now live with him and his two sons in just outside Bristol.
Fantastic. And so not a bad place to be, locked down, I guess. I know all of us now are kind of stuck close to home. I know I've had to come back home as well. And not a bad base to obviously be, although it sounds like obviously the lockdown or the plans recently will have interfered with some of your plans in some way.
Yeah, I would be surprised if every person hasn't had their plans impacted in some way or other. So,
true.
Yeah.
So of course we're in these unprecedented and tumultuous times, and I guess my first question really is how are you staying resilient? What's helping you to manage with the uncertainty? Because it sounds like that's what you thrive on.
It is. I mean, at the beginning, I was a bit nervous and fearful, and almost maybe I avoided even looking at the news and finding out how big this impact was. So maybe slightly ignorant, and that really doesn't help. That didn't help me. So what I've recently put in place is acknowledging that my glass, my capacity to maintain things is actually just a little fuller than usual. So I need to give myself more space to be alone, if only in a corner of a room with my noise cancelling earphones on. It doesn't have to mean isolation as it meant before. So it's just at the moment acknowledgements that what we're going through is something none of us have ever experienced before in our lives, and with hope never again. But it's about giving myself extra space to unwind, to realize that I need more time and more self-care as well.
Absolutely. And I think that self-care and making the time for that mental well-being is probably more crucial now, and is a massive test for so many people, especially when they've had their normal escape put in restriction, or kind of it's been I think for a lot of people, especially those that rely on the outdoors, I know we can all do stuff on our doorstep, provided we're not obviously ill or showing symptoms. But I know a lot of people, especially living in the cities, they can't, travel to the lakes or to Snowdonia, or they're having to kind of do stuff close to home. And I guess people having to it seems people are having to learn new ways to cope. Now we're in this, in this kind of lockdown period, and we're on week 2. And I think I do worry that a lot of the outdoors people and the athletes will be feeling especially isolated. I guess I know we mentioned a bit about your story, and all the things that you've done so far around the world. So I'd love to hear more about that, really, and really what motivates you. What's motivated you to take on that journey?
Sure. So, I'd love to cover back a little bit about this isolation thing later, which I'm sure we will anyway.
Yeah.
But I think from an early age, I always knew I was a little different, but I didn't know if everyone had a similar feeling or otherwise. It was as if I was always on the outside of society, or outside of the joke, or outside of the circle. But I did my best and tried my hardest to fit in, and maybe that was to my detriment, because I kind of lost my way for quite a long period of my life, where I did things to satisfy either that tick list of society, get a job, get a degree, get a house, or to please other people in my life, to make my parents proud, neglecting that what I was doing wasn't actually fulfilling to me or my sole purpose. And for me, the moment happened in 2012 when I had, if you want, an awakening. It was literally at a cliff edge, where I was faced with a choose to jump or be pushed moment, where my partner of 9 years broke up with me just 6 days before my wedding. Retrospectively, it was the best thing that could have ever happened. It was a very toxic relationship that I found myself trapped in and couldn't say no to. But at that time, my entire life just froze. And to cover the word of isolation, at that point in my life, he had tracked an app on my phone, so I wasn't allowed to leave the house without permission. I was running a guest house at the time, so even if I went up the street to buy supplies, I'd get a phone call to say, what are you spending the money on? What are you doing? Wow. So I found myself very isolated in this house. And to look at myself back then, in 2012 to today, 2020, I did the wrong thing, if you want, back then, in that I took it out on myself. I blamed myself. I tried to find the answer at the bottom of a glass of wine most evenings, and just basically sort of didn't look after my health and reinforced the negative self-loathing patterns and belief. So today, what I'm noticing is I'm actually empowering. Whenever I catch those thoughts of, could I be doing better? What I'm doing is I'm putting it in a bubble and just sending it away. And so here today, whilst we're still in isolation, albeit both of them for me were sort of not by choice, if you want. This is sort of for our global health, and that was for negative reasons. I'm actually using this isolation as tools to empower myself, because ultimately we can't change what's outside of us. We can't change the environment. We can't change what people do to us or how we're restricted, but we can change how we think about it. Absolutely. And so what I'm choosing here is focusing on how I can change my mindset to be resilient, as you use that word, to make sure that I live a more Teflon lifestyle. So words of negativity don't stick to me, that they can just pass through, acknowledging their existence, but not allowing them to penetrate and sort of eat into me all the time. So that's a little bit of my background. And coming back to that, cliff edge moment, what I decided to do was to jump by choice and believe that my parachute would be created all wings along the way. And that's when I decided to revisit my dreams of what I'd given up on, waiting for the right moment or the right time. And that's when I started to swim, cycle, and run again. And as you correctly said, within 2 years of a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and frank conversations in front of the mirror at 4 a.m, I became world champion in my age group in triathlon.
Wow, that's a phenomenal journey, and to go in that transition in 2 years is I mean, I run, but nothing to that level, and I can only imagine the amount of time and the dedication that takes. And wow, well, lots to explore there. I think I actually had a really good question on Twitter from Richard Ellis, actually, which ties in quite well to that. And I noticed this again on your website that you said, that from quite an early age, you kind of questioned everything in life. And that was, do I fit in? Do I want to follow the same path as everybody else? But was there a moment in your childhood or from a younger age that inspired you to follow that kind of sense of trying to question and not settle for the average?
Um, it's a very deep question, actually. It brings us to what you said, what a Reiki master is, because that's energy healing that works with universal energy to make sure that we all stay positive and connected. I have memories from when I was 1, and when I was 2, that's when I realized that we were all connected on a and I couldn't say it in these words, but I knew that we were all connected somehow. We couldn't see the connections, but we were. And so that's when I started to see how we interacted with the environment, or how I responded whilst eating lower vibration foods such as heavily processed or microwave foods versus meals that I just picked out of the garden. And I started to notice how we were all connected on those levels. But yeah, so it wasn't necessarily a decision, but it was as simple as, if my mother said put my watch on my left hand, I just asked why. And if the answer wasn't appropriate, or it wasn't fulfilling enough, I'd wear it on my right just to see the difference. So I became very experiential in my life.
That's it. And again, it's obviously that's led to an amazing journey, and again to to achieve so much and experience so much. And again, it's in some ways I've always been the same, that I've always kind of tried to go a different way. But I think for me it was more adversity and probably being bullied and always wanting to kind of be different and not wanting to fit in. But I just wanted to go back to that point before, because it's interesting how you said about, obviously we can't control what's happening, and we're in this kind of forced position, and that's something a lot of us are very uncomfortable with. Is there anything from your journey in the past, and your past experiences, especially when you were in a similar kind of isolation, but because of a difference, caused by a different scenario, anything that you've learned from that, or from sport, that is really helping you now, that's really helping you to cope? Is it one thing?
The one thing is actually the opposite of my name. So as you know, my name is Kate Strong, and I was brought up to not be weak. And what I've learned to do is embrace vulnerability by actually showing where I'm struggling. And I always thought that was what I shouldn't be doing. But the one thing that has got me through a lot more these challenging times for me is to actually sit down with my friends. When I say sit down, obviously it's on a Skype call like we are, and just say, I'm struggling. I snapped at you last week and I'm sorry. How can you help me, or what can you help me with? So the biggest gift I can offer anyone is to open up and share what we're struggling with, because everyone wants to help. I would never say no if someone came to me asking for my assistance, and we can do the same for others as well by asking for theirs too. So it's about showing our vulnerability and embracing the assistance together through this moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's always that ingrained fear that, well, what if they say no, or what if they won't help? But as you say, when you flip that coin over, and if somebody asks for help, well, I'd like to think most of us wouldn't dream of saying no. So why we would assume others would do the same to us? I think that's a really key point there for all of us now, is just being willing to share any anxieties or fear, because we're all in the same boat. And I think this is probably what inspired me to start the series, is that even the adventurers and the athletes who've been in some pretty challenging situations by choice, and are probably in a similar position now because we've not dealt with this before. And I guess that brings me on and asking, what projects have you got you are now? I mean, I know obviously, like all of us, plans and goals may have been put on hold, but is there any big projects in the lineup for this year ahead?
Not this year. Well, originally I was going to be supporting Mark Beaumont on his cycling challenges for this year and next year, because it mirrors with my cycle competition for 2022, because I wanted to complete Race Across America on a bicycle. So for me, luckily, I have nothing short term that needed readjusting. I have my bicycle. This is my office bedroom slash gym. So behind this computer is my bicycle setup. So after this call, I'll jump on it and do a few hours. So yeah, so that's pretty much my biggest challenge. I do intend to swim the channel as well, but again, it's open to dates. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, it's just a matter of enjoying myself, getting to know myself. I love your title, Mind Over Mountains, because now's the time to look at our inner mountains and the inner shadows too. And I'm really embracing that to find out what can I thrive and face towards and see that light or the mountain reaching ahead of me, but also what shadows are behind me, maybe holding me back, that I could learn to let go as well. So this is a great time to sort of open up that closet and air what we need to make sure when we're ready to go outside, we're not just strolling, we are running forwards.
Oh, I'm just going to feel the energy from here. It's fantastic. I think, as you say, it's a case of using this as, using this to our advantage as much as we can. And as you say, it's learning to adjust and look for the opportunities. And actually, if we force ourselves to, if we look, if we look for it, there's always actually, there is always, some benefits in this, and more time to train, more time to prepare. And when we can't see the top of the mountain, I think it will make sense in time. But I think our impatience is we want to know when and how and why now. So again, it's actually, that's exciting, especially because Mark will be a guest on this series soon as well. Again, so like yourself, Mark is a huge inspiration for you. Just gets on the bike and achieves extraordinary things. So really really excited for that chat as well. So
yeah,
plans for this year. Well, again, it sounds like you've got lots of things coming up in the near future. I guess what tips would you give to other people now who are watching this and perhaps feeling a bit isolated and maybe something that they haven't dealt with themselves before? What advice would you give to them?
I would look to reach out to people who've gone on similar paths. So there's always, I have a guide, if you want, who's a few steps ahead of me, and I also am supporting people a few steps behind me, and together we're walking up our journey of life. So find someone who inspires you and reach out and ask them to be your guide in whatever capacity that may be. And I've also created a WhatsApp community group to support the local elders around us who may be too fragile to leave the house. And it gives me a sense of belonging, that I'm not just taking, I'm also giving back. So if we do feel isolated, sometimes by giving, we're also receiving too. So if we can't receive from someone, find who you can give and start that journey by you leading rather than finding the leader.
Fantastic advice, and I love that. And I think it's so true that now is when it really brings out the best in people. I know we've seen some of the negative and the panic buying and all that, because that's just that's kind of it's a reactive experience. It's completely guided by fear, and there's a lot of that right now. But you don't have to look far to hear lots of these heartwarming stories. And I don't know if you had it in Bristol, but the NHS clap last week was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'd imagine in Bristol, was that fairly big?
Yeah, we had it. We had trumpet players as well, so it was amazing to hear.
And again, I think it's those stories that kind of coming together that creates that hope, really, especially in the outdoor community. And I know that's been affected by this with all the sporting events cancelled, and it's a case of I think in some ways it's really positive. It's helping people to also reevaluate what really matters. And again, I'd be interested actually. On a sense of the, environment, and also being as plant powered. Now, I guess then, there must be an interest there in sustainability and the planet and health. And I know a lot of people now are seeing this as quite a positive thing for the environment, because of obviously it's reducing all the pollution. It's making us, obviously stay close to home. I mean, have you seen anything there? I mean, what's your thoughts around that?
Well, I've noticed a certain interest in how we can be more innovative in cooking. Maybe they haven't asked the question of the link towards the environment, but if you look on the shelves, ironically, the biggest produce that's available are the fresh fruits and vegetables, and that's our natural medicine that prevents us from being able to be in a state of dis-ease that allows that illness to come into our lives. So I'm loving to see more and more people get more innovative or buy items like celery they've never cooked before and ask for recipes in that way. So it's great to see people getting more innovative in work and in their food. What I'm praying is that more and more people see that we don't want to return back to normal, that we set the bar as this being the normal and we build from here. There's no going back from this. We have to move forward and eating healthily, whatever health means to you. So I'm not here to push my personal life choices, but that, you know, eating more down to earth, eating more in sync with nature will prevent future disconnections when disease is present. So that is now the precedent, and we need to use this as the present and build forwards, not go back to what we used to have.
Absolutely, and again, this is what it's probably been kind of a key question for most people is, what is normal and will it go back to normal? And I think it's probably taken a sharp shock to realise that maybe normal wasn't the best and it wasn't the most efficient. Now, I guess we can't obviously, you know, again, it's important we don't dismiss the fact that, you know, thousands of people are dying and many, many more are ill, and it's a national emergency. It's a global emergency, but there has to be some positives to move forward. You know, that we can learn from this and keep people healthy and make sure that this, you know, doesn't happen again, or we can learn a lot from this. And I think if there's some benefits for the planet and for how we live, I mean, I'm sure I would quite like to be speaking in front of audiences again rather than in front of Skype, but I think there's a lot of things that we've learned, and hopefully we won't kind of take for, you know, kind of take as a given.
Yeah.
I think anybody could have comprehended being able to only do one form of exercise a day, and it makes you very grateful for that. I know I've been, and I'm sure you yourself, just been able to get on the bike and you know, and train and enjoy nature. And I think this is where, you know, especially in Mine Over Mountains, when all this settles down, we want to make sure we can be there to help people to, you know, kind of get themselves back together, because we know so many people will be affected by this. And on that note, again, is there anything new or different that you've tried during this lockdown period? I know it's only week 2, but we're seeing some daft stuff on the internet, so I'm just wondering if you've tried anything.
Well, my entire life was completely 180. So, you know, I was living alone. I was living on rural farms, house sitting while people, you know, looking after the animals while they were away and working remotely. And now I live in a 2-bedroom flat with my boyfriend and his 2 teenage sons. So what I'm doing differently is actually playing stepmom to 2 kids who need a lot of space, and unfortunately we can't allow that. So it's becoming innovative in playing table football with blueberries and things like that to allow them to try new foods but also keep the peace between everyone. So mine is quite average experience, but to me it's a complete extreme to my usual lifestyle.
I must say, I mean, you know, yesterday my mum announced she's going to make a cake for probably the first time in 20 years. So I think it's, well, I actually had a mobile phone call off my grandma who's in her mid-80s. So it's coming up with all sorts of crazy ideas, but all, you know, all in a kind of a good way, I'm sure. And again, in some ways, this whole series is something completely new for me. So despite the tech glitches, I'm still learning. So it's all good. So a few quick fire questions now as well. So let's see what we've got. So we've got a few here. What's your favourite place to explore in the UK? Your favourite adventure place?
My favourite place in the UK, I love Snowdon, so I could spend my life up in Snowdon. Yeah, that's my favourite place.
Okay, that was a quick answer. I guess that must be your nearest mountains if you're based in Bristol.
I guess, I mean, I've got the southern mountains as well. I could visit the Brecons, which aren't technically mountains, but yeah, I just love the ruggedness, the rawness, the way I feel so wild, because you don't know what's happening around the corner, and you can have sunshine one minute and mist and rain the next. It's absolutely spectacular to remind me that we're fragile in such this impressive world.
I could certainly vouch for Snowdon having those different hats and multi-characters, and no day on Snowdon ever feels like the same. It's always a new adventure, and fantastic
Mm.
place to explore. Obviously not quite at the moment, but something that we can all look forward to. And on that note, what are you most looking forward to once all these restrictions are over?
Well, I really am looking forward to hitting the ocean and going for an ocean swim. I've realised how much I miss the sea, so that's something I really want to get back into, and that's the first place I'm going to go, is find a coastal beach and just jump in and go for a swim.
That sounds fantastic. I mean, I'm sure hopefully by then it'll be a bit warmer as well. I'm a bit of a wimp when it comes to wild swimming, I must say. And again, I think the outdoors has never felt so small, you know. And you know, I did see people were doing half marathons in their back gardens and marathons even. It's been quite phenomenal to see how people are improvising. I
Yeah.
mentioned on my last episode about Rory Southworth climbing the 3 peaks in his garden step. So yeah,
Wow.
brilliant. So and this is, well, I'm sure this one we've covered a lot already, but what one thing are you most grateful for right now, would you say?
It sounds cliche. I'm just grateful every morning to wake up. If we can just be as simple as that, then you know, the rest of the day is set. So every morning I wake up and I see light coming through the window, and I show gratitude for that.
Well, as you say, sometimes, especially now, those simple things mean a lot, and that's something that all of us can learn from and take on board. It's an easy one, you know, to apply. And I think, if anything, we've all learned recently just how little we really need, you know, and that's a really positive thing, I think.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic. Well, I could ask so much more about, you know, your sports adventures. I know we've had a chat already in the past, and where would be the best way for people to find out more, to speak to you? Because I know you do lots of speaking and coaching, and where's the best way for the people to find out more about Kate?
Sure. I love getting connected. I love hearing from people. So please drop me a message. My website is katestrong.co. That's it. No .uk or anything.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook, or even Twitter. Please write me a private message, and I'd love to hear about their stories as well.
Fantastic. Well, at the end of the interview, I'll put up a screen with all your links on as well, and send people there. Because again, it's really good to hear, you know, just a short, you know, just a short overview of all your stories. And I'm sure there's so many more. Here's the PowerPoint, and there we go. So again, everybody, thank you again for tuning in. I hope you're all keeping well. Stay safe, wash your hands, look after each other. Thank you again, Kate. You've been fantastic as always, and pleasure to have you on the show. Tomorrow we'll be speaking to Damien Hall, the ultra runner record holder, also my coach. He'll be talking about his record, his his many records and ultra running journalism and achievements. So tune in again on Friday evening, and we'll be speaking to Damien Hall. But again, thank you, Kate. Looking forward to hearing about your adventures, and stay safe and catch up soon.
Thank you so much, Alex. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Speak soon. Cheers, Kate. Bye, guys. Thank you.